Tensions between Iran and Israel continue to rise, adding further instability to an already volatile Middle East. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has taken a firm stance, making it clear that Israel will persist in its actions against Iran and its regional allies. According to his statements, one of the central concerns remains Iran's nuclear capabilities, particularly the presence of enriched uranium, which Israel views as a direct threat to its national security. Netanyahu emphasized that Israel is determined to prevent Iran from developing nuclear weapons under any circumstances. He argued that allowing Iran to maintain or expand its nuclear program could shift the balance of power in the region and pose long-term risks not only to Israel but also to global stability. These remarks come amid growing fears that diplomatic efforts have failed to curb Iran's nuclear ambitions effectively. On the other hand, Iran continues to reject accusations that it seeks to develop nuclear weapons, insisting that its nuclear program is for peaceful purposes. However, the lack of trust between the two countries has deepened over the years, fueled by past conflicts, proxy wars, and opposing alliances across the Middle East. As both sides harden their positions, the possibility of direct or indirect confrontation increases. Analysts warn that without meaningful diplomatic progress, the situation could escalate further, drawing in other regional and global powers and making the path to peace even more challenging. The conflict in Lebanon has intensified as clashes between Israel and the Iran-backed group Hezbollah continue to escalate. Israeli forces have carried out a series of strikes targeting positions in southern Lebanon, resulting in casualties and significant damage to infrastructure. These operations are part of Israel's broader strategy to weaken Hezbollah, which it considers one of the most immediate threats along its northern border. In response, Hezbollah has launched retaliatory attacks, including drone strikes into northern Israel. According to reports, one such attack successfully hit an Israeli military target, with claims of destroying a tank. These exchanges mark a dangerous escalation, as both sides demonstrate increasing military capability and willingness to engage more directly. Hezbollah's involvement reflects the wider regional influence of Iran, which supports the group politically, financially, and militarily. This makes the conflict more than just a border dispute, it is part of a larger proxy confrontation between Iran and Israel. Over the years, Hezbollah has evolved into a powerful force, capable of challenging Israel in ways that go beyond traditional guerrilla warfare. Civilians in border areas are bearing the brunt of the violence, with many displaced and living under constant threat. The continued cycle of attack and retaliation raises fears of a broader war that could engulf not only Lebanon and Israel but also draw in other regional actors, further destabilizing the Middle East. Efforts to establish a ceasefire between Israel and the Iran-backed group Hezbollah have so far failed to produce a breakthrough, despite increasing international pressure. Diplomatic initiatives, particularly involving the United States and other global stakeholders, have aimed to reduce tensions and prevent the situation from escalating into a full-scale war. However, deep mistrust between the parties continues to hinder meaningful progress. Reports indicate that Israel has been reluctant to engage directly in ceasefire negotiations with Hezbollah, viewing the group as a militant organization rather than a legitimate political actor. Israeli leadership believes that agreeing to a ceasefire without significantly weakening Hezbollah could allow the group to regroup and pose an even greater threat in the future. This position has complicated mediation efforts and slowed down diplomatic momentum. On the other side, Hezbollah has shown limited willingness to de-escalate without guarantees, particularly regarding Israeli military actions in Lebanon. The group insists on protecting its strategic interests and maintaining its role as a resistance force, which it argues is essential for defending Lebanese territory. The ongoing deadlock highlights the complexity of the conflict, where military, political, and ideological factors are deeply intertwined. As ceasefire talks remain stalled, the risk of further violence grows, with each passing day increasing the chances of miscalculation. Without sustained diplomatic engagement and compromise from both sides, the prospects for peace remain uncertain, leaving the region on edge. Iran has taken a firm and increasingly assertive stance amid rising regional tensions, particularly in response to growing threats linked to Israel and its allies. Iranian officials have issued clear warnings regarding any military activity near strategically vital areas, especially the Strait of Hormuz, which serves as one of the world's most important shipping routes. Tehran emphasized that it is closely monitoring movements in the area and is prepared to respond decisively to any perceived aggression. Iranian military sources stated that while civilian and commercial vessels would be allowed safe passage, any attempt by foreign military ships to enter or operate in sensitive zones could provoke a strong reaction. This position reflects Iran's broader strategy of deterrence, aimed at signaling its readiness to defend its sovereignty and regional interests without directly initiating conflict. These warnings come at a time when concerns are mounting over possible escalation involving Israeli or Western forces in nearby waters. Iran's leadership has repeatedly stressed that its actions are defensive in nature, but the tone of recent statements suggests a heightened level of alertness and preparedness. Analysts believe that the situation remains fragile, as even a minor incident in such a critical maritime corridor could quickly spiral into a larger confrontation. With tensions already high across multiple fronts, Iran's military posture underscores the risks facing the region, where strategic missteps could have far-reaching consequences for global trade and security. Global reactions to the escalating tensions between Iran and Israel have grown increasingly urgent, with world leaders warning of a wider regional conflict. Among the most vocal critics is Recep Tayyip Erdogan, who strongly condemned Israel's actions and delivered sharp remarks against Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. Erdogan went as far as comparing Netanyahu's policies to those of historical dictators, reflecting of his criticism and the deepening divide between Turkey and Israel. The Turkish president also issued a stark warning, suggesting that continued escalation, especially if diplomatic efforts between Iran and global powers fail, could push Turkey toward a more direct role in the conflict. He referenced past military involvements in regions like Libya and Nagorno-Karabakh as examples of Turkey's willingness to act when it sees its strategic interests at stake. Such statements have raised concerns about the potential expansion of the conflict beyond its current boundaries. Meanwhile, other international leaders and organizations have called for restraint, emphasizing the need for dialogue and de-escalation. There are growing fears that any further deterioration could draw multiple countries into a broader confrontation, disrupting global stability and economic systems. As rhetoric intensifies and positions harden, the international community faces a critical moment. Whether through diplomacy or deterrence, the coming days will be crucial in determining whether the situation can be contained or spirals into a much larger and more dangerous conflict.